Pam stepped out of the taxi, tired but relieved that her long day of meetings had finally come to an end. She looked up at the tall glass building that stood before her. It was one of the most popular hotels in the city, known for its 5-star service and beautiful design. She had stayed in many hotels before, but this visit felt different. She wasn't just a guest this time. She was here for a reason that no one in the lobby knew about. Her flight had been delayed, and she had rushed straight from the airport to the hotel. Her hair was slightly messy from the wind, and she wore simple jeans, a white blouse, and a light jacket. She didn't look like someone important. Her rolling suitcase had a few scratches from travel, and her face showed signs of a long day. When she entered the lobby, the air smelled like fresh flowers and coffee. The floor sparkled and soft music played in the background. Several guests stood in line at the front desk waiting for their turn. Pam took her place in line and looked around quietly. The people behind the counter wore crisp uniforms and friendly smiles, at least toward the guests they wanted to impress. When it was finally her turn, Pam smiled and stepped forward. "Good evening," she said softly. "I have a reservation under the name Pam Bondi." The young woman behind the counter looked up briefly and then down at her computer. Her smile faded into a blank expression. "Can you repeat that?" she asked in a sharp tone. "Pam Bondi," Pam said again, keeping her voice calm. "I booked a suite for tonight." The woman typed something, frowned, and sighed. "I don't see any suite under that name." "Are you sure it's this hotel?" Pam's smile didn't fade. "Yes, I'm sure. I made the reservation through your official site. I even got a confirmation email this morning." She opened her phone to show her booking. The woman glanced at the screen quickly but didn't look impressed. Well, our system doesn't show anything. Maybe you made a mistake." Before Pam could respond, another guest walked up to the counter next to her. The staff member there immediately brightened up and greeted him warmly, offering complimentary water and calling him sir with extra charm. Pam noticed the difference but stayed quiet. "Would it be possible to check again?" she asked politely. "I've been traveling all day." The receptionist gave her a tired look. "Ma'am, as I said, I don't have your name here. You can wait in the lobby if you want, but we're fully booked tonight." Pam hesitated. "I had a suite reserved." "There must be some confusion." The woman shrugged and said in a slightly sarcastic tone, "Maybe you meant the hotel across the street. It's more within the budget for most travelers." Pam blinked slowly, her calm face hiding the small sting of the insult. "I see," she said quietly. "Thank you for checking." She stepped aside, pulling her suitcase gently behind her. She found a seat in the corner of the lobby and sat down. From there, she could see everything: the front desk, the bellboys, the guests arriving and leaving. She noticed how some employees smiled broadly for well-dressed customers while barely acknowledging others. She had seen this kind of behavior before, but seeing it here in one of her company's hotels made her heart sink a little. A waiter passed by with a tray of drinks and didn't even glance at her. She could have called out, but she decided not to. Instead, she opened her phone and scrolled through her emails, confirming once more that her reservation was correct. It was all there: her name, the date, the room number, the hotel's address. Everything matched perfectly. After a few minutes, a man in a suit walked by and noticed her sitting there with her suitcase. "Excuse me, miss," he said politely. "Are you waiting for someone?" Pam looked up. "Just waiting for the front desk to sort out a booking issue," she replied. The man gave a professional smile. "If you don't have a confirmed reservation, I'm afraid we can't check you in. This hotel is quite exclusive. We get a lot of mix-ups from nearby places." Pam nodded slightly. "I understand," she said. "Thank you for letting me know." The man gave a short nod and walked away, his shoes clicking on the marble floor. Pam leaned back in her chair, her mind calm but thoughtful. She wasn't upset, not yet. She had experienced disrespect before in different forms, but every time it happened, it reminded her of why she cared so deeply about what she did for a living. She watched as a family came to the counter, tired, with 2 children. The staff smiled, helped them with their bags, and offered water. Then an older woman in simple clothes arrived, and the staff's friendliness faded again. Pam noticed it all: the small changes in tone, the fake smiles, the selective kindness. When the woman walked away looking confused, Pam stood up and approached her. "Are you all right?" she asked gently. The woman sighed. "They said they lost my booking too. I'll have to find another hotel." Pam gave a kind nod. I hope you find a place soon." The woman smiled faintly and left. Pam returned to her seat and checked the time. It was almost 5:30 p.m. She knew the regional manager would arrive soon for their scheduled meeting. He didn't know that she was already here, watching everything. That was part of her plan. As the CEO of the hotel chain, Pam had decided to visit some of their branches anonymously to see how customers were treated when no one knew they were being observed. She didn't want a polished presentation or a red carpet welcome. She wanted the truth, the real experience guests had when they weren't rich, famous, or powerful. What she found so far was disappointing. The service was beautiful on the surface but broken underneath. The smiles were polite but empty. A few minutes later, the same receptionist whispered something to another employee, both glancing at Pam and laughing quietly. She could hear bits of their conversation. "Probably thought she could afford a suite here," one of them said softly. "People always show up thinking this place is cheap." Pam pretended not to notice, though her heart sank. She wasn't angry for herself, she was sad for them. How many guests had they treated this way before? How many had walked out feeling small? Just then her phone buzzed. It was a message from the regional manager. "On my way to the hotel. We'll be there in 10 minutes to welcome our new CEO." Pam smiled faintly. She decided not to reply. Instead, she stood up and walked toward a corner of the lobby where she could see the entrance clearly. The receptionist noticed and rolled her eyes slightly, thinking Pam might be trying again. "Ma'am," she said loudly, "as I mentioned, we don't have any rooms available tonight." Pam nodded politely. "I understand. I'll wait for someone." "Of course," the woman said in a slightly mocking tone. "Feel free to wait as long as you like." A few guests turned to look, sensing the tension. Pam simply smiled and returned to her calm silence. Minutes passed. Then the glass doors of the hotel opened and a tall man in a navy blue suit entered, holding a folder. He looked around and spotted Pam instantly. His face lit up. "Mrs. Bondi, you're here already," he said warmly as he rushed over. Everyone turned. The receptionist's eyes widened in shock. Pam smiled and extended her hand. "Good evening. I thought I'd arrive a little early," she said in a soft voice. The man looked genuinely pleased. "It's wonderful to finally meet you in person. Everyone's been looking forward to your visit. I was hoping to give you a proper welcome." The receptionist's face turned pale as the realization hit her. The same woman she had just dismissed and mocked was the CEO, the top executive of the entire company. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Pam turned to look at her, still calm and kind. "Yes," she said, "we've already met." The silence in the lobby was heavy. Guests glanced at one another, sensing something important had just happened. The staff members froze behind the counter. Pam didn't raise her voice or show anger. Instead, she simply said, "It's always nice to see how our guests are treated." Then she turned back to the regional manager. "Shall we talk somewhere private?" "Of course," he said quickly, gesturing toward the elevator. As they walked away, Pam glanced once more at the staff behind the counter. Their faces were full of regret and fear. She didn't smile or frown, just gave a simple nod before stepping into the elevator. Inside, she took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. The experience had been painful but necessary. She now knew exactly what kind of change was needed. Not just in this hotel, but across the entire company. That evening would stay in her memory for a long time. Not because of the rudeness she faced, but because of the lesson it revealed, that true hospitality starts with respect, and respect should never depend on appearances. And as the elevator doors closed, Pam felt calm. Tomorrow would be a new day and a very different conversation was about to begin. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and Pam stepped out beside the regional manager. He walked a little faster than usual, clearly nervous. He kept glancing at her face, trying to read her expression. But Pam's calmness made it impossible to tell what she was thinking. "Ms. Bondi, I must apologize for any inconvenience," he began as they entered a quiet hallway. "I didn't know you had arrived earlier." "We would have prepared," Pam stopped him gently. "It's all right," she said in a steady voice. "I didn't come early for a welcome. I wanted to see the place through a guest's eyes." The man nodded quickly, unsure if that was a good or bad sign. "I see," he said carefully. "Would you like to rest first or go straight to the meeting room?" Pam gave a small smile. "Let's go to the meeting room. I think it's better to talk now." she continued, her tone calm but firm. I came in with a confirmed reservation. I was told my name wasn't in the system. That can happen, mistakes occur. But what surprised me wasn't the error. It was how I was treated because of it. No one spoke. They all looked down, their faces growing pale. The staff didn't try to help, Pam said quietly. They didn't look for a solution. Instead, they made judgments about who I was based on how I looked. I was told I should try a cheaper hotel. I was spoken to with sarcasm. And when I sat in the lobby, I heard them laugh about it. The words sank into the room like heavy stones. The regional manager finally spoke, his voice low. Ms. Bondi, I'm deeply sorry. That's completely unacceptable. I assure you this isn't how we train our staff. Pam nodded slightly. Training isn't the issue, she replied. It's attitude. You can train people to smile, but you can't train them to care. That has to come from leadership, from the culture we build. Everyone stayed silent, afraid to interrupt. Pam looked at them one by one. Tell me honestly, she said. When was the last time you observed how your guests are treated when they're not VIPs? When they're not business partners or celebrities? No one answered. The silence was her answer. Pam leaned back slightly. That's what I thought. You've built a beautiful hotel. The building is perfect, the furniture is expensive, the service manual is detailed. But somewhere along the way you forgot the heart of hospitality. Respect. One of the senior managers cleared his throat and said softly, Sometimes the staff get tired or they deal with rude customers, and it affects their behavior. Pam turned to him gently. I understand that. People have bad days, but kindness isn't a luxury, it's part of the job. You never know who you're talking to or what someone has been through. A guest might be coming from a long trip, or they could be going through something personal. Our role is to make them feel welcome, not judged. Her words carried no anger, only truth. The regional manager took a deep breath. Would you like to speak with the employees directly? Pam thought for a moment, then nodded. Yes, but not to scold them. I want them to understand why this matters. Within 15 minutes, the main conference hall was filled with hotel staff, receptionists, bellboys, waiters, cleaners, and managers. Most of them looked nervous, especially the ones who had spoken to her earlier that day. Pam stood near the front, her posture relaxed but confident. Good evening, everyone, she began softly. I know this isn't a planned meeting, but I wanted to talk to you about something important. The room was completely quiet. When I came to this hotel earlier, she said, I didn't introduce myself as the CEO. I wanted to see how it feels to be a regular guest walking into your hotel. What I experienced wasn't what I expected. The staff shifted uncomfortably. I understand that people make mistakes, Pam continued. But what I saw wasn't a mistake, it was a habit. A habit of judging people too quickly. A habit of assuming who deserves respect and who doesn't. That's not what this company stands for. She looked around the room, her gaze steady. This hotel isn't built on marble floors or glass walls. It's built on people, on you. Every guest who walks in should feel welcome, no matter how they look or dress. You never know who they are or what they're going through, and even if they're no one important, that doesn't change their worth. Her voice was calm, but it reached everyone's heart. I didn't come here to embarrass anyone, she said gently. I came here to remind all of us why we do this. Hospitality isn't about fancy rooms or big tips. It's about kindness, and kindness doesn't cost anything. The receptionist from earlier, the young woman who had turned Pam away, looked like she might cry. She raised her hand timidly. Ma'am, I'm really sorry. I didn't recognize you. I thought. Pam smiled softly and interrupted her. You didn't need to recognize me. You just needed to respect me. That's all anyone ever wants when they walk into a hotel. The woman nodded, tears forming in her eyes. Pam took a slow breath before continuing. From today, things will change. Not through punishment, but through understanding. Every employee here will go through a new training program. Not about systems or bookings, but about empathy. About learning to listen, to notice, and to care. A few staff members exchanged hopeful looks. The room began to feel lighter. Pam walked closer to the group. I've been in this industry for over 20 years, she said. I've worked at the front desk. I've carried luggage. I've cleaned rooms. I know how hard this job can be. But I also know that when you treat people with respect, you feel proud of your work. It changes how guests see you and how you see yourself. There was a quiet murmur of agreement. Even those who had been defensive earlier began to nod. Pam smiled a little. One of the reasons I love this business is because it allows us to make people's days better. Maybe a guest had a bad flight or lost their luggage or just feels alone. One smile can change that. One act of kindness can make someone's whole experience different. That's the power you all have. The employees stood listening, some with watery eyes, others with small smiles. Pam's tone softened. We'll make mistakes. I will too. But what matters is that we learn and grow. No one will lose their job today. Instead, we'll rebuild together. We'll make this hotel a place people remember not for how grand it looks, but for how good it feels to be here. The staff began to clap quietly, then louder. It wasn't applause for a boss, it was a sign of relief, a sign of respect. After the meeting, many of them came forward to thank her. The receptionist who had judged her earlier approached slowly, tears still in her eyes. "Ma'am," she said, "I learned something today. I was wrong and I'm sorry. I promise I'll do better." Pam put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "That's all I wanted to hear," she said kindly. "We all make mistakes. What matters is that we change after them." As the hall emptied, Pam looked around at the people talking quietly among themselves. The energy in the room had shifted. It felt hopeful, like a new beginning. Later that night, Pam walked through the lobby again. The lights were softer, the air calmer. The same staff members she'd met earlier now greeted guests with genuine smiles. She stood near the same corner where she had sat before, watching quietly. A middle-aged man walked in with tired eyes and a small suitcase. The young receptionist welcomed him warmly, offering water and checking his booking with care. Pam saw her glance up briefly, noticing Pam nearby. Their eyes met for a moment and the receptionist smiled, a real heartfelt smile. Pam returned it and nodded. As she turned to leave, she felt a quiet sense of peace. The day had started with judgment and ended with understanding. That was more powerful than any apology. Walking out into the cool night air, Pam thought to herself that leadership wasn't about titles or power. It was about setting an example. People didn't change because they were forced to. They changed because someone believed they could, and she believed they could. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the large glass windows of the hotel lobby. Everything looked calm, but the air carried a quiet tension. The staff were moving carefully, speaking softly and making sure every detail looked perfect. Word had already spread among them about what had happened the previous evening. Everyone knew now who the woman they had turned away really was. Pam arrived in the lobby early, holding a cup of coffee. She looked rested yet thoughtful. As she walked past the front desk, she noticed how the same employees greeted her politely, their voices soft, their posture straight. They were nervous, but she didn't want them to fear her. She wanted them to learn. "Good morning," she said gently, smiling at the receptionist. "Good morning, ma'am," the young woman replied quickly, her tone full of respect. "I hope you had a comfortable night." Pam nodded. "I did, thank you." "How's the morning going?" "It's going well," the woman said, glancing down shyly. "We've already checked in 3 guests." Pam smiled again. "That's good to hear." Then she walked away slowly, giving her space to breathe. She knew change didn't happen overnight, but it had to start with small steps. The regional manager joined her a few minutes later. "Ms. Bondi, I've spoken to the staff again this morning," he said. "They're very sorry. They've been reflecting on what happened?" Pam nodded. "That's good. But don't let them dwell on guilt for too long. It's more important they move forward." "Yes, of course," he said. "I've also prepared a schedule for the empathy and hospitality workshops you mentioned." Pam took the folder from him and opened it. Inside were detailed plans, training sessions, guest experience reviews, and staff meetings. She looked impressed. "This is a good start," she said. "But make sure it doesn't feel like a punishment. Let it be something they look forward to, something that reminds them why they joined this profession." The manager agreed. "Understood." As the day went on, Pam spent her time walking through the different parts of the hotel. She visited the restaurant, the housekeeping area, and even the staff kitchen. Everywhere she went, people stopped what they were doing to greet her respectfully. But instead of formal nods, she wanted real connection. She approached a young waiter setting tables for breakfast. "Good morning," she said kindly. "How long have you been working here?" He straightened up, surprised that she was talking to him directly. "Almost a year, ma'am. Do you like it?" she asked. He hesitated. "I do. It can be stressful, but I like meeting people." Pam smiled warmly. Pam noticed the careful way he arranged the plates, how he adjusted each napkin perfectly. It reminded her that even those who seemed quiet had pride in their work. Sometimes they just needed to feel seen. Later, she went to the housekeeping floor. The cleaning staff were working silently, pushing their carts and changing bed sheets. When they saw her, they froze for a moment, unsure what to do. Pam waved gently. "Please don't stop," she said softly. "You're doing great work." One of the women looked up and said shyly, "Thank you, ma'am." "We don't usually meet the CEO," Pam smiled. "Well, you're meeting one today. I just wanted to thank you. You're the heart of this hotel. Guests might never meet you, but they always feel your work." The woman's face lit up. "That means a lot," she said. Pam spent the rest of the morning observing quietly. She noticed something interesting. The more she spoke to the staff with kindness, the more comfortable they became. Their smiles began to look genuine again, not forced. The energy in the building started to shift. Around lunchtime, the regional manager joined her again. "There's something I'd like to show you," he said. "It's about the guest feedback from the past few weeks." They went to his office and reviewed the reports. Some comments praised the beauty of the hotel but mentioned that the staff sometimes seemed cold or disinterested. Pam pointed at one note and said, "That's what I felt yesterday." "The building is perfect, but people don't come to hotels for buildings, they come for warmth." The manager nodded. "I understand now. We've been focusing too much on appearances." Pam leaned forward. "It's not just you. Many hotels do the same. But we can fix that. It starts with people feeling valued inside. If the employees feel respected, they'll naturally pass that to the guests." He smiled, realizing how true that was. That afternoon, Pam called for a smaller meeting with the team leaders. She wanted to talk openly about how things could improve. They gathered around a long table, notebooks ready, but she spoke in a tone that felt more like a conversation than a lecture. "Let's be honest," she began. "We've lost touch with what makes hospitality special. It's not about luxury, it's about care. A guest might forget what their room looked like, but they'll never forget how you made them feel." A senior receptionist raised her hand. "Ma'am, how do we make every guest feel special when we're under pressure? Sometimes the line is long and we barely have time to breathe." Pam nodded thoughtfully. "That's a fair question. The answer isn't about time, it's about attitude. Even a simple 'good morning, how was your journey?' can make someone feel welcome. It takes 3 seconds, but it changes everything." The woman nodded slowly, writing it down. Pam looked around the room. "And remember, kindness isn't weakness. It's strength. It shows confidence, empathy, and control. When you treat guests with respect, they respect you back." The team leaders listened carefully. They could feel that she wasn't just giving instructions, she was speaking from real experience. Her words carried weight because they came from the heart. As the day ended, Pam decided to have dinner in the hotel restaurant. She wanted to experience it as any guest would. She sat alone by the window watching the city lights shimmer outside. The waiter from earlier came to her table, his voice steady but friendlier than before. "Would you like to try our special tonight, ma'am?" he asked. Pam smiled. "Sure, what is it?" "Grilled salmon with roasted vegetables," he said proudly. "The chef recommends it." "I'll take that," Pam replied. While she waited, she noticed how the staff now treated every customer with more care. The same receptionist from yesterday was helping an elderly couple with their luggage, smiling warmly and speaking gently. The bellboy offered directions to a tourist, patiently explaining each street. Everything felt different, not perfect yet, but better. When her food arrived, it was beautifully presented. She took a bite and smiled. It tasted just right. She motioned the waiter over. "Please tell the chef it's excellent," she said kindly. "I will, ma'am." "Thank you," he replied with genuine pride. After dinner, as she was leaving, a young cleaner in the hallway greeted her with a big smile. "Good evening, ma'am. I hope you enjoyed your meal." Pam smiled back. "I did, thank you very much." Walking to her room, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was the change she had wanted to see, small gestures of respect growing naturally from within. Later that night, she sat by the window in her suite, writing notes in her journal. She wrote about what she had seen, what had improved, and what still needed work. Then she paused and thought about something her father once told her when she first started working in hotels. "People don't remember the marble floors, Pam. They remember the people who smiled at them." She closed the journal and looked out at the city lights. It was true. Everything came down to people. The next morning, before leaving the hotel, she gathered the staff once more in the lobby. Everyone stood quietly, waiting for her to speak. "I want to thank you all," she said warmly. "Yesterday was difficult, but today I saw something beautiful. I saw change. Real change. You've reminded me why I love this business." The employees smiled, some shyly, some proudly. Pam continued, "From now on, I want this hotel to become an example for the others in our chain. Let it be known not just for its rooms or its design, but for the way it makes people feel. Let's make kindness our trademark." The staff clapped softly and some looked emotional. Pam smiled. "I'll be visiting again soon, not as your CEO, but as your guest. I want to see that same warmth every single day." As she prepared to leave, the receptionist who had once been rude walked up to her again. "Ma'am," she said quietly, "I'll never forget this lesson. You taught us something no manual ever could." Pam smiled kindly. "Then my visit was worth it." She shook the woman's hand and walked out through the glass doors. The morning sun hit her face and a gentle breeze blew through her hair. She felt light, knowing she had left something behind that was more powerful than authority. She had left a spark of humanity. As the doors closed behind her, the staff turned to each other, smiling and chatting softly. They felt inspired, ready to start a new chapter. And from that day on, something truly changed inside that hotel. Not because they were told to, but because they wanted to. Pam looked back once before getting into her car. She saw the lobby shining in the sunlight, full of life and warmth. For the first time, she felt proud, not just as a leader, but as a person who had seen hearts open and kindness return. And as the car drove away, she knew this was only the beginning of something much bigger. When the regional manager left the meeting room, the staff stood in silence, not knowing what to say. Pam looked at them with calm eyes, her face kind but serious. The energy in the room was heavy. Everyone understood that this wasn't just another business talk. This was about who they were and how they treated people. She took a deep breath and started speaking softly. "You know, when I came here this morning, I didn't want to check how clean the rooms were or how perfect the food tasted. I wanted to see something more important." She paused for a moment, letting her words sink in. "I wanted to see how guests are treated when no one's watching. When you think no one important is around." No one dared to move. The front desk clerk who had spoken to her rudely earlier stood with her eyes down, her hands twisting nervously. The young man who told her to find a cheaper hotel shifted his weight, his face pale. Pam continued, her voice steady but not angry. "Hospitality is about kindness. It's about seeing people, not just serving them. It's not something you fake when the cameras are on or when the manager's around. It's something you do because it's right." Her words carried warmth, not anger, and that made them even more powerful. She wasn't here to humiliate them. She was here to make them understand something deeper. "I have worked in this industry for over 20 years, Pam said. "I've cleaned rooms, carried bags, checked in guests, and worked through long nights. I know what it feels like to be tired. But I also know what it feels like to be treated kindly when you least expect it. And that's what makes all the difference." The staff slowly started looking up at her, their expressions softening. They could tell she wasn't there to punish them. She wanted to teach them something real. Pam walked over to the front desk, resting her hand gently on the counter. "This place," she said, "is not just about luxury. It's about people walking in after long flights, business trips, heartbreaks, or family visits. You never know their stories. You never know what they've been through. But you always have a chance to make their day a little better." The receptionist nodded slowly, tears forming in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know who you were. I just assumed." Pam smiled faintly. "That's the problem," she said gently. "We shouldn't treat people better only when we think there's someone important. We should treat everyone like they matter because they do." There was a long silence. Then Pam turned to the manager and said, "From now on, I want things to change. Not just here, but across all our hotels. Not by fear, not by warnings, but through understanding." She asked them all to sit down. For the next hour, she shared real stories from her life, about guests who changed her perspective, and about mistakes she made early in her career. She told them about a time when she was working as a young assistant and accidentally lost a guest's luggage. Instead of being fired, her supervisor taught her how to handle difficult situations with honesty and grace. That moment shaped her. "Everyone here deserves that same chance to learn," she said. "I don't want you to be afraid. I want you to grow." The team began to relax, and some even shared their side of the story. One woman admitted that she was under stress from working double shifts. Another man said he thought guests dressed casually were often troublemakers because of his past experiences. Pam listened patiently to each one, never interrupting. She didn't judge them. She understood them. When they were done, she said quietly, "We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after them." Then she outlined her plan. She wanted every hotel branch to start a new training program. Not a boring lecture or a long manual, but real hands-on sessions that focused on empathy, communication, and understanding. She wanted employees to experience what guests felt. For example, one exercise would have staff check into their own hotel pretending to be guests, to see how it feels to be ignored or welcomed warmly. The team nodded in agreement. They could see she meant what she said. She wasn't talking from a high place. She was speaking from experience, from the heart. Pam also decided to introduce a new rule. Every morning before starting work, each team would share one good thing that happened to them, or one kind act they noticed. It was a small thing, but she believed it could change the way people thought about kindness. "You can't fake compassion," she said softly, "but you can practice it until it becomes part of who you are." The next few days were different. Pam didn't leave town immediately. She stayed to work alongside the team. She helped at the front desk, greeted guests, and even carried luggage with the bellboy. The staff watched in surprise as their CEO smiled at everyone, no matter how busy she was. At first, they were nervous around her, but after a few days, they started feeling comfortable. She laughed with them, shared coffee breaks, and listened to their personal stories. One of the housekeepers told her about saving money to send her daughter to college. Another staff member spoke about moving to the city for a better future. Pam realized that behind every uniform, there was a dream, a struggle, a human being trying their best. And she made sure everyone else saw that too. A week later, she gathered everyone again. This time the mood was different. The team looked hopeful, almost proud. She smiled and said, "You've all made progress. But don't stop here. Remember, this isn't about impressing me. It's about changing the way you see people." She told them about a man who once stayed in one of their hotels years ago, a man who looked tired and ordinary, like someone who didn't belong in a luxury place. But he turned out to be an author who later wrote a best-selling book. In one chapter, he described a hotel where the staff treated him with kindness and said it restored his faith in people. That hotel, she revealed, was one of theirs. "That's the power you have," Pam said. "You can make someone's bad day a little better. You can make someone believe in kindness again. That's bigger than business. That's humanity." Her words lit up the room. The same people who once looked ashamed now looked inspired. They wanted to do better, not because they were told to, but because they wanted to. When Pam finally prepared to leave, the staff gathered around her. The front desk clerk stepped forward holding a small note. "I just wanted to thank you," she said. "Not just for giving us a second chance, but for reminding us why we do what we do." Pam took the note and smiled. "You're welcome," she said. "Just promise me one thing. Treat every guest like they're your first. You'll never go wrong." She walked through the lobby toward the exit, stopping for a moment to look around. The same space that had felt cold and tense a few days ago now felt warm and welcoming. She saw staff greeting guests with genuine smiles, helping with luggage, offering water to travelers, and chatting kindly with families. She nodded to herself. The change had already begun. As she stepped outside into the evening air, Pam felt a quiet satisfaction. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was about people growing, learning, and becoming better together. She knew she had made the right choice by teaching through patience, not punishment. Sometimes change doesn't happen through authority. It happens through compassion. Pam looked back at the hotel one last time before getting into her car. She knew there was still work to be done, but she felt hopeful. The staff had seen themselves through her eyes, and that was the beginning of something real. That night, as the city lights reflected off the tall glass windows, something beautiful had shifted, not just in the hotel, but in the hearts of the people who worked there. Months passed since that unforgettable day when Pam revealed who she really was. The hotel that once felt tense and divided was now alive with warmth and energy. It was almost hard to believe it was the same place. The walls were the same, the furniture was the same, but the feeling was different. Something deep had changed. The people. Pam had continued visiting quietly, sometimes without announcing her arrival. She liked to walk through the lobby, pretending to be just another guest. But now every time she entered, she could feel the difference right away. The smiles were real, the greetings were kind, and the air carried a sense of care. One cool morning, Pam arrived at the hotel earlier than usual. The sunlight was soft through the glass doors, and she watched as the front desk team started their shift. The same woman who had once been rude to her was now the one offering fresh coffee to guests waiting to check in. She moved with calm confidence, her voice warm and polite. Pam stood near a potted plant, quietly observing. A man walked in, his clothes dusty from travel, looking a bit lost. He asked if he could store his bags before check-in. The staff didn't hesitate. They smiled, took his bags, and offered him water. One of them even asked if he'd like to rest in the lounge for a while. Pam felt her heart lift. It was the kind of moment she had dreamed of creating, ordinary kindness that changed someone's day. Later, as she walked through the hallway, she overheard laughter from the staff lounge. The team was doing their morning exercise, each sharing one good thing that happened in the last 24 hours, just like Pam had suggested. One said a guest left a thank you note. Another said a co-worker helped her when she was feeling down. The laughter was real, full of life. Pam smiled quietly. They were becoming a family. She made her way to the kitchen next. The chef greeted her with excitement, saying the hotel had started serving a new menu based on guest feedback. People feel listened to now, he said proudly. They're not just customers anymore, they're part of the story. Pam nodded, proud but humble. That's the spirit, she said softly. The next week, the hotel received an unexpected visit from a famous travel blogger. The staff didn't know who he was. He looked ordinary, wore simple clothes, and carried a camera in his hand. He checked in quietly and observed everything, taking notes in his little book. He saw how the staff treated guests, how they smiled, how they handled mistakes gently, how they spoke with kindness. After a few days, he checked out, leaving behind a handwritten note. It said, "This is the kindest hotel I've ever stayed in. They reminded me that hospitality isn't about status, it's about heart." A week later, his story went viral. The internet loved it. People from all over the country started sharing the post, calling it the hotel that found its heart again. Reviews poured in, praising not just the beauty of the place, but the warmth of the people who worked there. When Pam saw the article, she didn't rush to call the staff or celebrate. Instead, she drove quietly to the hotel the next morning. She wanted to see their faces when they found out. As soon as she walked in, she saw everyone gathered around the reception counter. Someone had printed the article and taped it on the wall. The title stood out in bold letters. The front desk clerk read it out loud, her voice trembling with emotion. Everyone clapped and cheered.